Hello, and welcome to this week's Ethical Dilemma in Science, where we're going to take a look at deepfake voice technology and ask the question, is this assistive technology? Is this an opportunity to preserve memories? Or is this possibly a form of identity theft? So the prompt for many of these ethical dilemmas in science is based on recent news reports. With this idea, my goal to try to link the science and ethics of these topics into current events. And so this is one that I've been thinking about for a little bit of time. So the movie Top Gun Maverick has recently come out. Within the movie, it's a sequel to the 1986 original Top Gun movie, so roughly 36 years ago now at this point. The actor Val Kilmer, which you can see on this photograph from the web report over here, experienced throat cancer during this period of time, since the last time he was in the movie. And as a result of the throat cancer, he has lost much of his voice. So he's still able to speak. I can't find any kind of accurate report on that, but he probably is able to speak a little bit, limited, maybe whispers, maybe kind of an exertion to be able to do it. So we wouldn't be able to deliver the strong performance that would be expected of a sequel with Iceman. So what they did is they programmed his voice into an artificial intelligence system to kind of deliver his lines for him. So he was able to act it out and in essence lip sync to the computer generated voice. Now I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard some sound excerpts, and to be honest, and I don't have the best ear, I really can't tell the difference. And so this is an exciting opportunity to allow Val Kilmer to revisit his role, his iconic, I'm a little bit of a geek here, his iconic role as Iceman from the original Top Gun. As I started researching this, there was an announcement that came out of Amazon at a technology conference that they're looking at adding a new feature into Alexa. And so Alexa, kind of sitting over here on a counter in another kind of web report, is this kind of interface, this kind of personal assistant that you can use, that you will talk to, and say, hey Alexa, and Alexa will do something. But you have the opportunity to choose some voices. But the feature that they're looking to add in is the ability to program in a personalized voice. And the way they described it at this technology conference is that you could program in the voice of a deceased grandmother. If you had samples of her speaking, you would be able to program Alexa, and so you would have the opportunity for the kind of approximation of a grandmother, a deceased grandmother, reading a book to her grandchild. And so that, it has a lot of potential interest, especially if you're thinking about kind of a beloved grandparent or a deceased individual, and you want to keep their kind of memory and spirit alive kind of going forward. And so if we take a look at this, and this is another kind of related article that came out in 2021, MyHeritage, a genealogy site for tracing ancestry, developed a deepfake tool similar to this, where you could upload photographs of ancestors and they would make them basically into short video clips. And so it would look as if you were reanimating the person. No voice at this point, but reanimating pictures so you could see what they would be, potentially looking like if they were moving around. And this was, described as, kind of describes it as a magical feature for some people, but a creepy feature for others. So what is it when we're taking a look at this voice technology? And so, again, something that's been around for a while, but modern technology, modern artificial intelligence technology is providing for more and more opportunities and potentially more and more concerns associated with it. So when I think about these voice technologies, the kind of example that comes to my head is a British theoretical physicist and cosmologist, Stephen Hawking. Now, he recently died in 2018, but he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, in 1963, and had a relatively slow progressing form of the disease. But it's a motor neuron disease that ultimately resulted in pretty severe paralysis, including paralysis of the muscles of the body as well as the muscles of speech. And he lived with this disease for over 50 years, but he was able to use a speech generating device to communicate with people. And so if we take a look at kind of a quick example of that, again, a YouTube video of some of his famous speeches.
So remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up.
So that was an early form of this voice technology that we're talking about. And so if we take a look at it, what are the uses for voice technology like we're talking about? So I'm describing it as voice technology, but kind of it's more accurately called augmentative and alternative communication, AAC. And so these are methods of communication for individuals that have impairments in the ability to communicate. So a good example of an unaided form of this communication would be something like the American Sign Language. And so we've got the American Sign Language symbol for love here. And so, you can communicate in that way. Using devices at a very basic level, and this is from a child's program, to kind of train children, to nonverbal children, to be able to communicate. And so you basically have a series of pictures where the child is able to go through, kind of click on or select the words that they want, build kind of a statement up here, and then speak that statement when they're done with creating that. And so it's a supportive technology. It's an assistive technology to help them to be able to communicate. More recently, with the development of advanced technology, advanced computer systems, we're seeing the development of a lot of text-to-speech programs. Basically, they would be described essentially as a read-aloud technology. And I just pulled a couple different articles, descriptions on how you can set this up on a variety of devices. And so you can see text-to-speech applications and opportunities within kind of Windows operating systems, the Mac operating systems. You can find them on personal devices like your phones, your tablets, both the Google-style tablets, the Android tablets, as well as the Apple iPhone and iPad-based tablets. Now, with these, they're basically using a computer-generated voice. The voice quality varies, and early systems were basically, early. They were primitive. They would go through, focus on phonetics and pronunciation of individual words, and it would sound, kind of similar to what we had with Stephen Hawking's, just as kind of a regular voice, regular kind of expression. But the new systems are going through and learning how to improve the pitch. So sometimes you're speaking low, sometimes you're speaking more high or stronger, more volume. So you can adjust the pronunciation, the speed. You can add in pauses, as well as the ability to read all kinds of different files that would have text associated with them. Now, from my perspective, I use a couple of these. I have an hour-long commute to campus on those days that I come to campus, so an hour to campus, an hour back. And so I use two programs pretty extensively. I use a Voice Dream Reader for reading PDF files. So if there's a scientific report that I want to listen to on my way to work, potentially something we're going to discuss in class, I can listen to that as I'm going in. Instapaper is an alternative. This is one that is very good. I use this when I'm researching these ethical dilemmas in science, is you basically load in web pages into Instapaper, you save them, and when I get into my car for my commute or I get ready to take a walk in the morning or in the evening, I create a playlist and I'm able to listen to basically the system, the Instapaper kind of app, reading me the web page that I've stored within it. And so, I don't really need the assistive technology. I could sit down and read this, but this allows me to multitask. The dead time that I would spend, driving to work or, sometimes I listen to music, but other times, I want to, kind of be processing things and thinking things. I can use this to, kind of work through some topics as I'm doing other things, as I'm doing chores around the house. And so we have that opportunity. And they're available anywhere from free to several hundreds of dollars. And as you'd expect, the ones that are a little bit pricier have, more opportunities and more bells and whistles associated, more features associated with it. And so I'm thinking about this. What are some of the other applications with this text to voice or text to speech technology? There have been a variety of studies out over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I just pulled a couple examples of this, so an article from The Guardian and an article from the journal Pediatrics, a peer-reviewed scientific journal, looking at the kind of response of children to smoke detectors. Living in Philadelphia, a couple horrific fires recently where individuals died in their sleep because either there wasn't a smoke detector that was working or they didn't wake up in time to be able to escape. And so there's a research going on, or is research going on, to try to figure out, are there better ways in which we can have kind of alarm system? And what a number of studies have shown is that the annoying beeping that goes off with a smoke alarm, a fire detector, is annoying, but oftentimes children will sleep through it. I know my own kids are very deep sleepers. But the research has shown that these children that may sleep through kind of the annoying beeping of a fire detector are more likely at responding to a mother's voice, waking up in an appropriate time, and hopefully being able to escape in that way. So again, this isn't necessarily the text-to-speech technology, but showing the importance of having a voice that an individual recognizes, giving them instruction on what to do. An NYU study from about almost 8 years ago now, and there have been some follow-up studies showing again that children understand familiar voices better than those of strangers. And so there's a benefit to children hearing voices that are similar to what they would normally hear. Now, there have been some studies to look at whether or not this changes their cognition, changing their learning, and at least at this point, it doesn't seem as if the speaker's voice has an impact on the kind of delivery of the information, the ability of the child to kind of learn it, but it is kind of an opportunity to kind of motivate a child or motivate kind of a listener using a personalized voice that is interested to them. So the technology that we're looking at with this deepfake voice technology could be described as digital voice cloning. And again, this is an NPR article that I will link to down below in the description, where you basically collect a series of voice samples. And the computer program is then going to analyze those voice samples, those voice recordings, and go through and kind of, in essence, digitize it, but they don't digitize the words. They digitize the kind of phonetics. They digitize the kind of emotions that are expressed, the speech patterns that are expressed. And in some of these advanced systems, they're able to generate a pretty accurate reflection of what the individual would normally be saying. Now, with this digital voice cloning, the ideal way to do that is to have the person whose voice that you're trying to recreate read from a series of phrases or a specific script that is going to give the computer program the kind of width and breadth of different sounds, word sounds, nonverbal things like ums and ahs and things like that. I should probably try to get rid of, but things like that. And are going to be programmed in. It's possible to take other voice samples. So if you've got a speech or a video of somebody speaking in the past, you can use that, and it may not be as accurate in the programming of it. But these systems have the ability to kind of learn from and mimic the voices that they're hearing. So as an application of this deep fake voice technology or this digital cloning, this is an example of President Obama, or at least it appears to be President Obama, speaking on a YouTube video. I'll play a short clip of this.
Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. It's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fucked up dystopia. Thank you.
So, we could argue whether or not we're in a dystopia, whatever, lead in we want to say associated with that. But we can see that it is becoming easier and easier to kind of mimic the speech of others, to take their in essence identity and use that for a variety of purposes. And so this was, and I forgot the name of this person, but it's basically put together by BuzzFeed in collaboration. You can find lots of other examples of that on the internet, on YouTube as well. So this was just a quick example of that, and it's much longer, and I'll put the link to this again in the description down below. So we can see that there's some potential advantages associated with that, but with many things where there are advantages, there are also disadvantages. There are going to be benefits and detriments associated with it, risks associated with it. And so just two recent articles, one from the BBC, one from Gizmodo, showing that it appears that cyber crooks are using this ability to kind of send instructions to people. One case in which cyber crooks were able to kind of mimic the chief executive officer's voice and send instructions to an employee to empty an account and send the money elsewhere. So an example of mimicking the voice in that case. More recently, there appears to be more use of this deepfake technology to apply for remote jobs where you've got to interview kind of remotely, where you're able to kind of disguise your voice or kind of pretend to be somebody who you're not. And so you can really mask your identity using these types of technology. And so moving forward, taking a look at just two examples of this that I thought were relatively interesting. The first one is Natalie Cole over here. Make sure I get this right. Natalie Cole is the daughter of Nat King Cole, a very prominent singer in the 1950s, early 60s. He died of lung cancer in 1965, I think it was. 150 plus singles, multiple Hall of Fame inductions, different genres of music, has a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and his daughter Natalie was a successful singer on her own with 9 Grammys. But what she did in, I don't remember when it was, I think it was in 1990, yeah, it was in 1991, is that with her team, she lifted off audio tracks of her father singing from previous records and then did a virtual duet where he was singing from these tracks and she was singing live. And she went on to create an album, actually a series of albums doing this. And the album was fairly successful. It sold 14 million copies. And so again, not quite the deep fake, but using kind of previous recordings of her father to serve as these duets. The second example I want to talk about here, we've got Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain was an author, chef, a travel host, a documentarian who died several years ago to suicide, very, very sadly. And in a documentary about his life and his experiences, they actually digitized his voice, created a model of his voice, and created a 45-second narration for that documentary of things that he had never said, that he had not said, but was able to create that and add it into this documentary. And so, for some people, it was, kind of nice to hear from him again. Other people were really questioning the ethics associated with this for creating things that he had not necessarily said in the past, but then were consistent with the narration that needed to go on within this documentary. And so this gives rise to our ethical dilemma in science for this week. What is the role of consent in the creation and use of a desired speaker? And so the speaker is basically this created, computer-generated, artificial intelligence-generated voice that we're going to be looking at. And so does it matter, or does it make a difference if the speaker is a public figure, a private citizen, or a family member? Does it make a difference if the speaker is living or dead? Does it make a difference if you're using previous verbatim statements of the speaker, similar to what Natalie Cole did by lifting the tracks of her father from previous recordings, or creating new statements, as they did in the Anthony Bourdain documentary? What limitations, if any, should be in place for the use of Deepfake Voice Technology for private in-home personal uses, for potential educational uses, maybe creating speeches of famous people from the past and hearing it in their own voice? We've used it in this class when we've listened to, I think it was Patton's speech to the West Point Academy graduation in the early 1960s. We looked at from the movie Patton with George C. Scott, and then I also provided the link from the actual audio of Patton's speech. And then does it matter if we're using these deepfake voice technology for commercial uses, for kind of making commercials, or for making things that would necessarily be told? Now, in terms of what we've been taking a look at, I wanted to give you a little bit more on the use of the question of consent and the use of this deepfake voice technology. Is that Anthony Bourdain, who we talked about on that previous slide, who they created some kind of extra computer-generated narration for his movie. He actually left the Travel Channel, which he had been working for a number of years, in 2012, as he reported on his blog, because they were using his voice and image to make it seem as if he was endorsing a car brand. And at least according to what was reported in his blog, this was done without his consent. He objected, and it continued. And so we're looking at his voice, his image, being used in essence for commercial purposes here, without his consent and without his approval. And so we could argue that there are these questions, these ethical questions associated with this technology already in place. And so I'm interested in what your thoughts are on this. As always, please see the description below for further information and references. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this ethical dilemma in science. Working on another one already for next week. So thank you and have a great week. And in the form of assistive technology, hopefully I got this right. Have a great week, everybody. Get it in front of the camera.